I don't know if you guys are familiar with Anton Daniels, but he does pretty much a panel 4 nights out of 5. He does a Monday, a Tuesday, a Thursday, and a Friday. But the Monday night is ran by Q, and Q picks people for the panel, and they talk about certain topics. And as you guys know from the intro of today's episode, we're going to be seeing their thoughts on the father who came to pick up his son who was dressed as a woman for prom. And you're going to hear some people's opinions. I'm going to give you a little bit of mine, but I love for people to hear other people's thought process and how they look at things, because this is not just me talking. This is, I want you guys to hear from everyone. And this panel does a good job at that. Q does a good job at that as well. So let's see what they're talking about here.
Guys, did anybody see the video that kind of went viral with the husband that went to the prom with his son dressed as a woman, a girl?
I saw it. It was disgusting.
I just right. Just want to say yes or no. Everybody, did anybody see it?
I didn't see it.
It's okay. Okay, so we gonna play this clip. Okay, that went viral. It's a little iceberg, and we're gonna talk about it if you want to.
My husband surprised his son by taking him to the prom.
Don't mess up that makeup, gather.
Before you hear their review, I don't know where my boy got his suit from, but my old player, old players do not wear anything fitted. You could tell he was probably born in 1970. He ain't wearing nothing fitted. But my boy said he clean. Ooh, don't do it to him with the BMW. Yeah, his son taller than him.
Yeah. So, does anybody want to comment on that? Did he? I was about to call him she. That's crazy. Did he look pretty to you guys?
No, he looked a mess.
Why do you look a mess?
Definitely look different.
He looked like he's trying to be Gay Prince or something with the dress schmess shoot. I don't know. It was a suit and then it was a dress. No. There was I didn't like it at all. Oh no.
Definitely different.
When I first saw it, I thought that was the dad standing there, but that was his son as a transgender, I guess. And I agree with that. I'm happy about that. Like, you can't control your kids, but you can love them. And if he was there and he felt lonely and, his dad meant being there meant that much to him, I think it was a beautiful thing to do for his child,
Sometimes you got to tell your kids no. Sometimes you got to
can love them if they feel lonely. You know what I'm saying? So.
Yeah, but why go to the you
no.
Be lonely? When I didn't know that parents could go to the prom with their kids. I didn't know that was a thing.
I feel like it's supposed to be for your peers, not supposed to be like, an adult experience. And then it's also, I don't agree. I feel like it's confusing. Like, as a father, he's supposed to be leading his son and teaching him the way. So the fact that you would publicly choose prom night to make this big, thing, and then the entire family full of women behind him is like cheering it on. And I'm just like, you're literally failing him. Like, as a dad, the fact, like, he literally looks like he's hiding tears behind his glasses. Like, he can't break out a smile. He's not hyping him up in the dress. It's like he's here because he was made to support him based off of what the females in the family believe in. But I feel like he's absolutely failing his son, and this is going to have long-term detrimental effects on him in the future.
The whole family is
So before they get too deep into their reactions to it, my opinion is this. As a father, and I only can speak from my experiences, as a father, you should always be there for your children. Supporting your children, in my opinion, does not mean that you're agreeing with their lifestyle. I choose to love you unconditionally as a father, but I'm going to continue to tell you if I feel something is wrong. But that doesn't stop me from loving you. That doesn't stop me from supporting you. And that doesn't stop me from being a father. Just like the Bible, but they're going to talk about the Bible a lot in this reaction. The Bible also tells us to honor our thy father and our mother. At the end of the day, if that young man wants his father in his life, we should be okay with that father supporting his son. With that being said, that does we don't know what type of conversation that father had that night. This probably was the first time he was able to support him, but also allow him an opportunity to speak to him and speak life into him. Because there are people who change their lifestyle. There are people who God is able to deliver and do certain things with. You're going to hear a lot of different opinions from this panel. With that being said, in my own opinion, I feel that you should always support your children. That doesn't mean you support their lifestyle. It's just like a person, perfect example that I'm going to give. It's just like giving a homeless person $20. We know that homeless person might go spend it on drugs or alcohol, but that's not my responsibility anymore. I gave them $20 because they said they were looking for money to get a room for the night. That's what they said on their sign. I gave that $20 out of a good gesture. After I leave and drive off, if that homeless man or woman chooses to go get high off that $20, that's no longer my concern. I did what was best for that person. And that's the same thing with a child who chooses to live an alternative lifestyle. I can preach to that child every day what I feel is the correct way, what God says is the correct way to live. With that being said, I shouldn't stop loving that child or being around that child. That doesn't mean I condone their behavior. And it's funny to me how people think about it because you're going to hear a lot in this reaction of this video. But with that being said, that's my viewpoint on it. Some people might agree, some might don't. I'm sure you guys will have some good comments to put in the comments once you watch it back, once I clip this up. With that being said, as a father, I'm going to always support my children, regardless of their lifestyle. Doesn't mean I support the lifestyle. Listen up. Doesn't mean I support the lifestyle. I support my child. And the more I can be around my child to give them the right guidance, that's all I can do. Because at the end of the day, God sees what you do. If you abandon your child and just let them go, that's not something I think is going to be honored. Even the prodigal son, if you when you read that story about the son when he finally comes back to his father and his father runs to him, for his father to be able to run to him, every day his father expected his son to come back home. And see, we miss those little tidbits as we're reading. But that means every day that father was outside waiting to see if his son was going to return. He didn't know when his son was going to return. There wasn't no cell phones back in the biblical time. There wasn't no messengers. His son made a decision to come back. And when his dad seen his son coming, he ran to his son. So that means every day he was looking for him. You know why? Because he prayed that he probably prayed to God that his son returns and returns safely. So it's the same thing that we should do for our children. We should pray for them daily and hope that they return back to what's right.
Depraved. They're all depraved, clapping and cheering that on. He's a weak man. That's why his son was looking like that. And Anton, I know we joke. Anton teased me last show about how I have a lot of gay friends. They would not have approved of that. That's He shouldn't even felt comfortable wearing that wig, full face of makeup in front of the father. And then the father's going to stamp it and go to the prom. And like y'all said, what parent even goes to the prom? Then you go into the prom with your son in a dress. It is That's why he looking like that. Like he shouldn't even feel comfortable to even put that ensemble on in front of his father. But that lets me know who runs that household because it's not the father. Like that was bananas.
mean-
I just okay. Sorry.
Go ahead, Kamaya. Go ahead.
I'm gonna just say this. I'll give credit where credit is due. At least the father is there supporting. something at least, I will say that much. As far as the dress and the baby, that was just too much for me. I don't I can't. I don't know. I don't even have the words for it. But I will give credit where credit is due. Dad decided to be there, whether he agrees with it or not. A lot of fathers nowadays can't even really say that they even know their child.
But did he
So
even
you feel like it's better that he would encourage the mental illness of him having a gender identity crisis instead of prying his child for, again, he can't even 100% confidently, escort him to the prom or whatever he's doing. Like he can't even do it confidently, which shows that I don't understand the point of like giving him a little bit of a cookie for support. Like he shouldn't be supporting that. Even if you're comparing him to fathers that don't know their children, compare him to fathers that do know their children. Most fathers that do know their children would not support that.
So what is he supposed to do exactly?
not?
And it's very easy to say what you would do when you're not in a situation. It's easy to Monday morning quarterback everything that went wrong in the game Sunday night. But if you're not in that situation, you won't know. You won't know.
Supposed to not escort his son to the prom. He wouldn't be in pictures. He like I'm not showing.
It's irrelevant. He's not doing that for you. He's doing that for his son. And this is a lot of times the problem with these kids deleting themselves. Instead of you caring about the mental health of that kid, meaning he probably has the worst life of all of us combined. Every time he goes outside, 1 second, every time he goes outside, somebody calls him. Every time he takes a picture, there's y'all talking shit about him. And it's fair. You guys can do whatever you want. That job is actually making sure that this kid is okay. That kid is grown. He's not a child. He's a grown man. So
That's not
you
true.
you have to show. So is that a
A
7-year-old you can't
senior,
show?
a senior in high school is a teenager, and
Yeah,
your
he's a
job
kid.
as a parent is to guide your child and raise them up with the correct values. So
And
no, it's
already done.
I mean, you
all
can't
out
say
of
One,
child
he
to
didn't know he
Mike,
didn't.
If
He
Mike, don't
failed.
jump Patty. Don't jump Patty. One mic.
He'd did better not being a father, because him being there, look at what happened. And 1.2 million people saw it on X, and they was all laughing at him. So if you talk about
there's the
people that
point.
was
Why?
making fun, I
But
was
there's
making fun of it. I was making fun of it.
and you can do it, but that's why the father is there, because of people like you making fun of the kids. Unless you are trunks from the future, you can go to the past and re-engineer whatever that kid became. He became that person. He became Magic Johnson's son. If you love
And
your
I'll,
kid, if you love your kid, what do you do? If that kid becomes Magic Johnson's
you
son,
said
what do you do? Do you abandon him?
I'll say
Yeah.
this much. I'm gonna
So
say
you
this
abandon
much.
the kid because he became like this?
You
Not
don't
taking
support
him
that.
Yes.
You don't support
Yes.
that.
That's
Patty,
crazy.
Patty,
Yes.
I'm gonna say
You
this
can have a
much.
gay son.
Because
You don't
then
have
I failed, and I haven't
I'm
done
gonna say
parent if you literally do the correct opposite, the direct opposite of what I raised you to do and believe in. Now, we're going to, obviously, we don't know 100%. We're going to assume he was raised under the standard values of what we all believe.
Even that really doesn't make sense. There's great parents out here who kids just do whatever they want. They become what the parent didn't raise them to be. What about kids who are coming from a two-parent household and now they're addicted to pills and they got hooked on fentanyl and they starting to experiment with drugs and get hooked on a certain substance? That has nothing to do with parenting. We fail to realize that everybody at the end of the day will make their own decisions. I don't care how great of a father or mother you are, your child will make mistakes and they will make their own decisions. With that being said, as parents, we are there to support, protect, and provide guidance. See, this is what I was talking about previously on one of my videos. No, it was on the grown folks business, because I know somebody was like, that's not what the scripture said. I didn't say that's what the scripture said. I'm just saying that we use the word raise our child instead of train up our child. So you could train a person. Perfect example. People go through people who really love guns and want to protect themselves. They go through a course and they're running, they're shooting at targets and they're bending down, they're reloading. We don't know if that person is going to remember all those skills and be able to do all those movements when they get into a real life scenario. Because that fight or flight kick in, your heightened awareness kicks in, the fear of killing someone who's real that's not a target. See, we don't train real. And it's a gentleman who does a video. I'm gonna have to find it. My homeboy Jones, shout out Jones, man. Teliado. Shout out Jones. Jones showed me a video of this gentleman who was just talking about how when people train with weapons, they don't really train correctly. They train for worst case scenario instead of training how to use the weapon when it needs to be used. But that's neither here or there. We'll continue.
Believe in. So for you to do the opposite of that, no, I'm not gonna encourage that.
I don't think we can do that.
We don't even know if that father was even there his entire life. We don't even know if he was raised by a single mother, which promoted this type of behavior to begin with, and if they had just gotten back into conversations of the father being in that child's life. We need to remember that our community is not the best community to begin with. We're the first community to always criticize and ridicule and pass judgment on people from a distance. We're literally outside looking in. So we don't know what that child's life was coming up, as Fatty was saying, but we're always the first ones to say something negative about someone else's life that we know nothing about. Now, the other thing is when it comes to how we're raising our children, yes, we are supposed to hold this standard because as Black people, we are that community that stands in front of a lot of people, all the time. We're always the first ones to get looked at a certain way, whether it's our own culture or other people's culture. But the thing is, we are not actually creating a culture where we hold that standard that we are ridiculing others about. We are literally not being those people all the time. So if we can go out and say, yes, we're against transgender and all of this other things, are we against fornication? Are we against, having children out of wedlock? Are we against all of these other things? Are we against, being alcoholics or drug addicts? Or are we actually those people that are generational curse breakers? Or are we just sitting here saying this is something that we are supposed to be doing, but we are all not holding that standard? I know, as for me, I follow God and I follow what the word says, and I try to do the best that I can to implement that in my life. But I know there's a lot of us that don't even acknowledge the Bible or acknowledge how we're really supposed to be walking. So I know
you have to be
in that.
You are absolutely, either you are misguided or you got to be lying right now, because there's no way in the world that you could listen. I'm cool with people having differences of opinions, but there's no way that you can sit here and tell me that you actually follow and believe in the Bible, but yet you think that this is okay.
No. Now this is the thing. I'm not saying that this is okay. What I'm saying is that we need to be able to separate the action that we don't like from the people. Like these are actions that are not okay. Like, of course, I would never want my son to be in a dress going to the prom or anything like that. That's nothing that I would actually say, yes, go ahead and do that.
From the people, if the people are the ones that are perpetuating the actions. The people are you don't separate them. You don't say, well, he's a person, but he's a murderer, but we need to separate his actions from the person. Oh, he killed somebody. He is the person that is perpetuating whatever crime he's being accused of.
So then Okay, so then if you say that, then that means that every single situation would be the exact same, whether like when you're killing someone. So if someone is actually killing someone in defense compared to someone just killing it because it was premeditated and then they just intentionally wanted to take away their life, and saying that, you're saying that because it's the same action.
I think that you're smart enough to understand that the context matters. If a person is defending themselves versus actually having a premeditated murder, it's a much different action.
But like you said, they're still a murderer.
They're not a murderer.
Murder is there's no reason for it. When there's a reason behind it, it's not the murder anymore. It's a killing, so it doesn't go against the body.
Correct. So you can't just say a person is a murderer because a life is taken. You can't say that. If I'm working heavy machinery on a job and then the cable snaps and you die because you were doing another job that was just as dangerous and you are the worst person that caught the worst end of it, am I a murderer? Because somebody got killed as a result of me, making a mistake operating the machinery, or somebody made a mistake and didn't tie the cable right, are they a murderer?
All right. So I'm not a biblical scholar, but there are certain things that I remember as a kid growing up, and as you get older, you start to read. And the young lady said something very important because they went to the extreme of like a murderer. Even with that, I think Jesus can separate the sin from the sinner. And what made me think about that is we all remember, well, if you're familiar with the Bible, we all remember when Jesus went into the temple and kicked over the table because the tax collectors was. But do we remember the young man Zacchaeus or Zacharias is his name? So let me read something to you guys. This is from Luke chapter 19, verses 1 through 10. It says, Jesus entered Jericho and was passing through. A man was there by the name of Zacchaeus. I think it's Zacharias, so I want to say it right. It's Zacharias. He was a chief tax collector and was wealthy. He wanted to see who Jesus was, but because he was short, he could not see over the crowd. So he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore fig tree to see him. Since Jesus was coming that way. When Jesus reached the spot, he looked up and said to him, Zacharias, come down immediately. I must stay at your house today. So he came down at once and welcomed him gladly. All the people saw this and began to mumber or mutter, he has gone to be the guest of a sinner. But Zacharias stood up and said to the Lord, look, Lord, here and now I give half of my possessions to the poor. And if I had cheated anybody out of anything, I will pay back 4 times the amount. Jesus said to him, today salvation has come to this house because this man too is the son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek and to save the lost. So right there, Jesus was able to separate the sinner, because we all know back in those days, tax collectors were robbing people. They were taking more taxes than they needed to. They were taking from the poor just to get richer, just like the tax collectors still do today. But anyway, with that being said, reading that parable shows you that Jesus can separate the sin from the sinner. And the biggest thing is, once you as an individual accepts your wrong and repent, as the Bible says, it allows Jesus to give you new salvation. Like Zacharias already knew what he was doing was wrong. Well, he either he knew what he was doing was wrong, or he felt the conviction of his wrong doing once he got in the presence of Jesus. And I think that's one of the things that people have to remember. And like I said, I could be wrong. I'm sure somebody in the comments will correct me. I'm not saying I'm a bishop, I'm a apostle, a pastor, none of that. I'm just reading the word and taking what I get from the word. And that's another thing we have to understand is that everybody's perception of the Bible is going to be different. When you start to read the New Testament on, everybody had a different little viewpoint of what they seen when Jesus went before Jesus went to the cross. Everybody had the same similar parables and stories, but there was always little tweaks here and there because everybody's perception is different. So when I read that there was a tax collector who was a sinner who knew that he was taking money and did possibly did wrong. He repented, and Jesus said that he was able to receive salvation. So this young man who is dealing with what he's dealing with has the same opportunity. And that's why I feel you can separate the sin from the sinner. But again, I'm just a messenger. That's it.
Because somebody else died, or does the context matter?
Correct. The context does matter, but when it comes to someone defending themselves and killing someone where you actually physical, I would see that as still a murder because they go to court for
No,
like
you wouldn't
you
go to
know,
court if you defend if somebody breaks in your home and they have a gun and they're trying to kill you and you shoot to defend yourself.
So I'm gonna fast forward this because they're gonna some of this don't really make sense. I just kind of want you guys to hear their opinion.
You're not going to go to prison.
deal with compared to just pointing out everybody else's sin.
You
That's
didn't
what
do
I'm really trying to
you didn't do nothing wrong, and you shouldn't succumb to peer pressure. Respectfully,
It's not about
one second. All of y'all love sinners. All of y'all, in some point of your life, you showed love for somebody that was committing a bunch of sins, and you still there's no one worse than you love them. Either they like whatever they did, you were loving a sinner, and you kept that way, and you probably talked with him. Y'all are not consistent. The Bible doesn't say that you actually shouldn't pass judgment to people. You should love them, have empathy for them, love like that's what the man is doing to that kid. If the
Man,
Bible
that's
says,
how we
one
got
second,
here.
if the Bible says, don't pass judgment, be humble, empathize to these people because you can walk on their shoes. What this man is doing is literally following the Bible. He knows his kid is a sinner.
And we
He,
don't
no.
we
Listen
support it.
carefully.
The
Let me
Bible
let me
says
finish.
we
Let me
also can
finish.
point
Let me
out
finish.
correction.
Let
The
me
Bible
finish and
also
then
says
correct
we
me.
can
Let me
judge.
finish and then correct
The
me.
Bible says we can
Once,
judge.
let me finish and then correct me. Wasn't Jesus literally on the cross showing love to other sinners that were literally next to him? Wasn't he actually showing empathy towards them? Right? So why can y'all go ahead and have empathy for people that are sinning left and right, including your president, grab them by the pussy and do a bunch of bullshit that we're not even going to talk about, but judging but judging this person, not knowing if he's a good kid, if he's a bad kid, if he's a good brother, if he's a good son.
Don't act like it was just a mistake or somebody just was driving by recording or something like this. This is what they're promoting.
Okay,
I'm asking you, do you know the context?
This is what I want you guys to hear because they're now going to start talking about like them posting things on social media and the reactions.
Full context and the stories that happened prior to that and why he said that.
You talking about when
All right, Hair Beast. So listen, the point that I'm making is this: is that it's nothing wrong with dealing with sin accordingly and forgiving, right? Having empathy, and I said this in the beginning of the conversation, is having empathy or sympathy or dealing with it accordingly is that's an entirely separate issue. But the fact that we are justifying this shit and saying that it's okay, listen, fam, this is a cultural norm, number one. Number two, they put this out there for us to see, to influence and impact what it is that we think and what we justify as right and wrong. Don't sit here and tell me not to judge when they put it out there for you to be influenced by. They put this out there. So don't act like it was just a mistake or somebody just was driving by recording or something like this. This is what they're promoting. This is what they're justifying. This is what they're trying to influence other people by.
And my thought process here when I heard this part is that I think sometimes as we get older, we forget that these younger people now, social media is all they know. Like it's so funny because we were watching American Idol the other night, and I was like, man, everybody has a recording of themselves. Like it seemed like parents were always recording and have videos and pictures and stuff like that. And I think it's just an example that today's society feels everything is appropriate for social media. I really don't think people post things. Certain things are for attention. I know that. I'm not, blinded by that. I know certain people are putting certain things up because they want certain attention. Just like we all are content creators and we put things up and we want to hear your comments and your thoughts about it. That's why we put it up. And Q goes on to say that too about, Anton's a content creator. But anybody can be a content creator. Anybody who puts their opinion on something, who posts something and give their opinion, they're a content creator, regardless of how big or how small their platform may be. They're giving their opinion. With that being said, I really feel in today's society, everybody feels everything is okay to put on social media. Because what is the first thing people do? Even in bad things, when people getting arrested or somebody's getting beat by the cops, people have their phones out. They're recording just to post it. Like that's what the world has become. So not everybody who posts things really wants you to judge them. I think some people post things because that's what they do. It's just I don't know. Like I don't know if that even makes sense to like the common person, but like I feel sometimes as we get older, we don't like look back at like what we would have did. Like I wish back in the day we had social media. I mean, some kids make it in sports now because of social media. What if I could have got my film out there to millions of people by just posting a video? One viral video can get a kid a full scholarship. Like, so think about the power of social media. We only look at it from the negative standpoint, but the positive standpoint can be powerful too. There's people who've been helped. There's people who have been given donations because their story was seen. That doesn't condone the behavior of the young man, but also I can't just say somebody's putting something up to get attention or to spread a lifestyle. Like, we don't know that. We can't assume that.
That's why it's called influencers. That's what they're trying to become. And so it's not judging, it's giving my opinion and evaluating accordingly. If somebody kills somebody and I say that motherfucker is a murderer, that's not judging them. That's calling them exactly what they are. If somebody is a homosexual and I say that they're gay, that's not judging them. That's calling it exactly what it is. So y'all listen, y'all better stop trying to justify this nonsense. I think that the majority of these dudes, the majority of these sons are the way that they are because of the women that are raising them. 100%.
But that's what I'm saying though, Anton. Like this, it's giving that the man was not there or.
So as you see, you guys, I'll link this whole video into the description. I don't want to spend too much time on it because it is a very long review. They did it for about a little bit over an hour. They discussed this part about the prom and the gentleman taking his son to the prom and how he was dressed. Very long, but I will share that for you guys. With that being said, you see they're going to start talking about fathers, and I feel like all that stuff is inaccurate. You can raise your child to what you feel is the perfect way to raise them, and they can choose a lifestyle outside of what they see. I tell people all the time, I grew up in a 2-parent household and I still got a divorce. I seen a perfect Brady Bunch family, and my dad and mom loved each other, never fought, never drink, never smoked, never cursed in front of us, none of that. And I still chose to do what I chose to do growing up and going through my marriage. So it's just one of those things. It's hard to say. It's hard to put everything into like a blanket response. People, it's just easier to blame fathers, to be honest with you, and then you blame a mother who has a father who's not present, and then you think it's her fault that her son turns out gay or whatnot. Like that stuff to me, that's too blanket of a statement. Because I know a lot of single mothers who raise their son, and their son is doing just fine. Their sons are married, so I guess it's touche. But I would love to hear your guys' comments.